Have you ever wondered why some people seem to drain every ounce of your energy, leaving you emotionally exhausted after each interaction? In the realm of personal relationships and toxic behavior, the ancient Stoics offer timeless wisdom that remains remarkably relevant today. As Epictetus wisely noted, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This profound insight sets the foundation for understanding how to deal with toxic individuals in our lives. The first step is recognizing that toxic behavior often stems from deep-seated insecurities and emotional wounds within the person displaying it. Toxic individuals typically exhibit patterns that can be identified through careful observation. They might consistently criticize others, manipulate emotions through guilt or shame, or display an inability to accept responsibility for their actions. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This perspective helps us maintain our composure while identifying toxic traits without becoming emotionally entangled. The key to protecting yourself lies in developing what the Stoics called self-sufficiency, the ability to maintain inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Seneca emphasized this point when he wrote, "He who has himself for a master of his emotions is no longer a slave to circumstances." When dealing with toxic people, it's crucial to understand that their behavior often follows predictable patterns. The constant victim, the manipulative controller, the chronic critic, or the passive-aggressive underminer. By learning to recognize these profiles early, you can better prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for interactions with such individuals. Remember, as Epictetus taught, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. This understanding becomes your first line of defense against toxic influences in your life. 1. Do not react to the emotional game. As Epictetus powerfully observed, it is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. This ancient wisdom directly addresses how we can disengage from emotional manipulation attempts, whether they come in the form of biting sarcasm, emotional blackmail, or manufactured drama. Toxic individuals often employ predictable tactics to provoke reactions. They might use subtle digs disguised as jokes, create artificial crises to demand attention, or employ guilt as a weapon. The Stoic approach teaches us that true power lies not in responding to these provocations, but in choosing our response carefully. As Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Strategic silence is a powerful tool. When faced with toxic behavior, maintaining a neutral expression and choosing not to engage can be more effective than any verbal response. Simple, neutral replies like, "I see," or "I'll think about that," acknowledge without fueling the conflict. The real strength in handling toxic behavior comes from understanding that their attempts to provoke you only have power if you grant it to them. As Seneca wisely noted, he who has provoked you also wants exactly what you want, to show that he can hurt you. The greatest punishment for him is to not give him what he wants. Remember, your controlled response isn't just about maintaining peace. It's about preserving your own emotional sovereignty in the face of attempts to disturb it. 2. Create barriers against toxicity. In navigating toxic relationships, especially those we can't completely avoid, the ancient Stoics offer profound guidance on creating protective barriers while maintaining necessary connections. As Epictetus wisely counseled, some things are in our control and others not. This fundamental principle becomes especially relevant when dealing with toxic individuals in our workplace or family circle. While we may not be able to completely eliminate these interactions, we can masterfully control their impact on our well-being. Creating effective boundaries starts with physical distance. strategically limiting unnecessary encounters and carefully scheduling required interactions. However, the most crucial barrier is emotional, developing what Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel, a mental fortress that prevents toxic behavior from penetrating your emotional core. When forced interactions are unavoidable, such as with close family members or workplace colleagues, cognitive reframing becomes essential. As Seneca advised, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This perspective helps transform how we interpret toxic behavior, viewing it as a reflection of the other person's internal struggles rather than a personal attack. For mandatory interactions, maintain clear, objective communication and establish firm boundaries. Remember Epictetus's teaching, set limits for yourself in everything. This might mean keeping conversations focused on specific topics, setting time limits for interactions, or creating structured environments for necessary engagement. Equally important is implementing recovery time after draining interactions. Just as Marcus Aurelius suggested finding retreat in ourselves, schedule deliberate periods of restoration and self-care following challenging encounters. This isn't about avoidance, but about maintaining the emotional resilience necessary for long-term stability. Once we accept that we cannot change toxic individuals, the next step is mastering how to respond or not respond to their behavior. 3. Be aware that you cannot fix anyone. This common impulse to fix toxic people often leads us down a path that the ancient Stoics specifically warned against. As Epictetus profoundly stated, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Yet many of us fall into the trap of believing we can transform toxic individuals through sheer will and dedication. This misconception often stems from a place of compassion, but as Marcus Aurelius wisely observed, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The truth is, attempting to change someone who isn't seeking change can be emotionally devastating. These efforts often result in a one-sided relationship where you continuously pour energy into an emotional black hole. As Seneca noted, he who has himself for a master of his emotions is not a slave to circumstances. This wisdom reminds us that true change can only come from within. Instead of trying to force transformation, the most effective approach is to embody the change you wish to see. This means maintaining your own emotional health and boundaries while avoiding unsolicited advice or attempts to rescue others from their own choices. As Marcus Aurelius taught, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Remember that accepting someone's unchanging nature isn't cynicism, it's wisdom. Some people may never recognize their toxic patterns or desire to change them. As Epictetus reminds us, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. By releasing the need to fix others, you free yourself to focus on your own growth and well-being. 4. Learn the power of silence and indifference. When dealing with toxic behavior, silence can become your strongest ally, transforming from a passive response into an active shield against emotional manipulation. As Marcus Aurelius wisely counseled, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This ancient wisdom perfectly captures the essence of using silence as a strategic tool. Toxic individuals often thrive on creating emotional chaos. They seek reactions, drama, and the satisfaction of knowing they've disrupted your peace. When met with calculated silence, their attempts at manipulation often fall flat. Consider how a toxic person typically escalates their behavior when met with resistance or argument. Yet as Epictetus observed, if you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your integrity. By choosing not to engage, you maintain both your dignity and your emotional equilibrium. This isn't about being passive, it's about being purposefully non-reactive. The practice of strategic silence requires cultivation. Start by implementing a deliberate pause before responding to provocative situations. This brief moment allows you to process your emotions and choose your response rather than reacting instinctively. When you do need to respond, neutral phrases like, "I understand," or "I'll consider that," can effectively acknowledge without engaging. Remember Seneca's insight: the greatest power we have is the power of choice. Each time you choose silence over reactivity, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're actively strengthening your emotional resilience. The beauty of this approach lies in its simplicity. By refusing to feed the cycle of toxic interaction, you naturally create space for peace and clarity in your life. In the end, your silence speaks volumes about your self-control and inner strength, while simultaneously demonstrating that you won't be drawn into unnecessary emotional turbulence. The Stoic philosophers, with their timeless insights, offer us a powerful framework for maintaining inner peace in the face of toxic behavior. As we've explored these fundamental principles, from recognizing toxicity without absorbing it to mastering our emotional responses, we've seen how ancient wisdom remains remarkably relevant. Epictetus captured this essence perfectly when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." True power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering ourselves. By setting firm boundaries, embracing what we cannot change, and wielding silence as a shield, we cultivate unshakable inner peace. The next time you face toxicity, ask yourself, will I let them control my emotions, or will I choose my own response? As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Remember, your response to toxic behavior isn't just about surviving difficult interactions. It's about thriving despite them. The power to maintain your peace was always within you. The Stoics simply help us remember how to access it. If you found this video helpful, comment below and let me know your thoughts. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more Stoic wisdom. Your support helps the channel grow.